Good evening, viewers, and welcome again to Discovering Truth. And I am Pastor Forbes from Abiding Word Ministries. For those of us in the Gambia, we have just come out of arguably the best historical weekend we've ever had in our country, in that we celebrated our 52nd independence anniversary, not just as an anniversary celebration, but there was so much into that because it was a celebration which we had never had after many years of a trying national time. And the atmosphere was pregnant with hope, with love. The joy was everywhere. And I am not too sure, I don't have the figures, but I think probably we had the largest ever crowd in the Independence Stadium, and possibly an equal number outside watching on two giant screens as President Adama Barrow took the oath of office, secrecy and allegiance and all that. And I'm in the presence of 6 presidents, a couple of vice presidents, delegates from everywhere, and just a joyous celebration. And you couldn't have felt prouder as a Gambian. And I am grateful to God. We will always be grateful to God. I keep saying before Gambia decided, God intervened in our little nation, not because we are better than other countries that would have wanted to see the kind of intervention we had to ensure that the will of the Gambian people stayed and stood. And so we are grateful. The photographs are all over the world. We keep trending on Facebook, on Twitter. This little country is being known now globally, and we are glad. We're relatively being known for the way we want to be known than the way we were known as before. But I see where we are now as what happens when two people come together in holy wedlock, in marriage. You know, the day you get married, to all intents and purposes, that evening, that night, and for a couple of days or a week, you go through a honeymoon. And I don't need to explain much about that. Honey and moon. And so it's romantic, it's sweet, everything is great and fine. But every one of us who is married or has been married before will tell you that the honeymoon does not last forever, nor should it. It's just the introductory catalytic impulse to start you on this journey. And as we tell people who plan to marry, when we counsel them, they should make sure that they understand that there is a wedding and there is a marriage. The wedding, depending on the structure you are in religiously, could be anything from 5 minutes when the vows are exchanged and signatures are given, and that's it. And there's a pronouncement in the presence of 2 witnesses. In some cultures, it could be the exchange of the tokens of the wedding for the contract and for the covenant to be done. So we have this phrase in Wolof Denko Taka. It's they tie the marriage. And but then that is always much shorter than the journey. So the wedding is the beginning of the journey of the marriage. And so, as we all observed last weekend, that was like our wedding and our honeymoon. But we are now back to work. And there are so many things that we have to do. I always keep saying that the coalition MOU says 36 months, already about 4 have gone. And so nobody needs to tell us that we need to tighten our belts. In our Wolof phrase, the takandiga, you know, the way a woman ties her wrapper, especially if she wants to exercise who she is, if she feels cheated. We tighten our belts and then we start working almost with a mindset that the Gambian day needs more than 24 hours for us to catch up, as we have been reintegrated and we have re-entered the Committee of Civilized Nations. And we do that with a great sense of hope and faith. You could see that on everybody's face. One of the greatest joys we all had was to see fellow brothers and sisters, countrymen, who some of us have not seen for 22 years, 20 years, 18 years, 16 years, just come. And, it's usual to see people just swerve off and stop their car and come out and jump and hug somebody and chat. And while you are chatting, other people are honking because that's somebody that came home because conditions were such that they had to be away for the safety of their own life. And we're thankful to God that many are coming home to contribute their quota to national development with a lot more experience, with a lot more sense of national patriotism, and with cohesion for those of us who stayed and roughed it out here when things were not as they could have been. And so we are not going to lose hope, we're not going to lose faith, but we are also going to remind ourselves that we have a lot of work to do. As is said in English, all hands must be on deck. I remember always saying on this program that none of us is as good as all of us together. And so if all of us are going to come together, then the dividers and the limiters to national cohesion and a sense of common patriotism and common stakeholder obligation, they must begin to fade out, either on tribal lines, religious lines. We are all the same. I am not lesser a Gambian because I am from a faith that appears to be minority. I am not lesser Gambian because I am from a gender that doesn't seem to be majority. I am Gambian. My Gambianness is not defined by the spread of my thought or the spread of my persuasion. I am Gambian. And that is what we must know. And I know a lot of things are trending. Gambia has decided, God intervened. I am saying we must have trends like never again. Let me also add, I am Gambian. I am Gambian is bigger than I am Serir, I am Tukulor, I am Aku, I am Jola, I am this. I am Gambian. Because at the end of the day, when I give my passport over at an immigration desk, it says the Republic of the Gambia. It doesn't say Aku. It doesn't say that. And so that would help us keep our hope and our faith alive as we put all hands on deck. I've also said here before, and I'm sure we all know, people who are in the construction industry will tell us all the time, anything that you are building, more often than not, you're going to see nothing of it at the start. And at the end, you are going to see all of it. Comparatively, when you start building, you're going to see a lot of something. And as you finish building, that thing ought to disappear. And the one word that encapsulates that thing is the word scaffolding. Scaffolding are the metal props, acro jacks, and so many things that are put together to help give this building its proper form after all the dumping levels have been taken and all the peggings have been done and everything is right. The acro props come into play to help this building. They midwife the building because this building baby is going to be born. But as we all know, when the baby is born, the midwife doesn't keep the baby as hers. The baby goes to the mother, and after some time, the baby begins to self-actualize because all that we were midwifing for 36 to 40 weeks, 9 months of gestation, all that we were midwifing, all the things the doctors were doing, checking fundal height and all the things, the breaking of the waters, all that was supposed to be for a baby to come out. And so care was being given to the mother for the sake of the baby. And great care was being given to the mother for her sake as well, so she can produce others. But the focus and the objective was for the baby to be born in peace. So the scaffolding was the midwife, was the doctor, was the oxytocin, was the BP machines, was the Dopplers, everything on standby. But when the baby came and all was well, they all recede and disappear into the background for the next stage. So it is in construction. You can always tell when construction is starting. You see a lot of acro props. You can always tell when construction is about ending because the acro props keep coming down. Whether it's a bungalow, 2-story, 3 stories, the acro jacks keep coming back. If not, they confuse the beauty of what we are supposed to see. Are we celebrating the scaffolding or are we celebrating the building? Are we celebrating the acropubs or are we celebrating the building? I mean, does the midwife keep this baby forever and the baby is kept in the neonatal unit forever? Or is there a time when mother and baby bag are sent off from the hospital with a goodbye and then baby starts living? If you had to take a photograph of a building, you will never be able to take the best photograph if the scaffolding was all around it, because it's confusing. And so all that we have all done, in-house, locally, nationally, with all the different organs that have done a tremendous job with individuals, names which are etched in our minds that we can never forget for the role they played, and some almost paid the ultimate price, not to talk of those who have predeceased us, who I keep saying we owe them a national memorial, because without them, people like Solo Sendeng, this would not all happen. And then the bilaterals and multinationals and multilaterals and the ECOWAS region and the African Union and the United Nations and all that. But the building is standing. And so the scaffolding has to now come down. If the scaffold doesn't come down, you won't think, or you would rightly assume, even though wrongly, that the building is still unfinished. And maybe more input in terms of economics, finances, equity, and other things will be coming, and of course the laborers will be paid on that side for no reason, because to all intents and purposes the building is finished. On Saturday the 18th of February, a couple of days ago, to all intents and purposes, the building was ready. The scaffolding has come down. We're not going to have these presidents come here every week. They've gone to their assignments. Some had to leave the same day because they had other national assignments. And so we are now left to ourselves. Question is, what kind of a Gambia do we now want? What is our brand? What are we going to market to the world? How are we going to even make ourselves worthy of the global goodwill from the civilized world that we saw last Saturday and all the weeks prior? And a few, maybe still delegations are coming, people are making requests. I don't remember us having 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 global television networks coming to cover something in my country, ever. And I'm 52. So there is a lot to say. The world wanted to see what was happening. So now the ball is in our court. We have to tell the world and ourselves that we are worthy of this goodwill. So step 1, obviously, we now all need to tighten our belts, dig in to build every sector of our country, because sadly, almost every sector has been touched with a lot of pain. And while we are doing that, in a short few 6 weeks or so, there's going to be the National Assembly elections. So it looks like we have an executive, almost, to just organize themselves legally, constitutionally. And then we have a Chief Justice, and everybody seems to be happy. We have an AG, everybody seems to be happy. So we can pretty much handle that, with a whole lot of Gambian input. And maybe I should also say, so we don't begin to nurse xenophobic tendencies, because, you could have had a bad stint with some people. It doesn't mean that every non-Gambian is bad in that respect, but I'm sure we all know that. And so in terms of the 3 arms of government, the executive is forming itself. yet to finish. The judiciary is there. They have what it takes. The present National Assembly legislators, their term is coming to an end. And as I said, every sector was marred by what we have. And the National Assembly is not exempt at all. So, in the next few weeks, what kind of legislators are we going to get? So that we see a constitution that makes sense to us all, that we can hold in pride and honor and dignity. And so we listen to National Assembly members that articulate either constituency causes, and that doesn't just mean demographic causes. There could be independents standing for youth, standing for the voice of the physically challenged, minorities, all kinds of things. So that we have an active, real, true, sensible, underlined, sensible democratic system. Because truth be told, when we read our Constitution, we wonder why. Why? And while I'm on that, we should remember that we should have one Constitution, not blue and pink. We should have one that states exactly who we are, especially in the secularity of our country. And so, between now and the first week of April that we go to the polls for the National Assembly, what are we thinking of? Do we want a rubber stamp National Assembly? Do we want a yes sir National Assembly? Do we want a yes sir judiciary? Do we want a yes sir executive? Do we want a yes sir fourth estate? Because if we do, then it's like everybody saw the possibility of our greater good except us. And there is a proverb in one of our West African countries. Basically translates thus, that people do not come and cry in your funeral more than you, the bereaved family. They only come to assist you in your crying. If so, while they are assisting you and dabbing their eyes, you are laughing, then they know they are wasting their time. I repeat, my fellow Gambians, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have never seen so much global goodwill to us. So I believe we are worthy of it, not just as a nation, but we find ourselves in the timing of God's mercy and God's goodness, because God always has a time to show us mercy and to favor us, because he calls that time the time that is accepted for his goodness. Within that bracket and that season, if we cannot do all we need to do, then like anything else, it ends. If you wake up and you want to plant your crops when the rains are over, there must be something wrong with you. It's the same thing. We will wonder why somebody starts selling umbrellas at the beginning of the dry season. It's the wrong time. Well intended, but wrong time. So people have seen the possibilities. And obviously there are certain people too who are investors. Some are good, some are hawks, some are sharks, and they have anticipated what can happen. Let it also not be said that we, the princes and princesses of the nation, walked on foot, while the non-princes rode horses and chariots. So the honeymoon is over. Wheelbarrow is over. We now have to bend down and work. Truth be told, if we look around, there's a whole lot of litter because of the joyous celebrations. Truth is that we must also learn how to celebrate without litter in the country. So we need to clean the country. We need to get back to work. However we do that, we are yet to find out. Also, as part of our reality now, financial information is being released on television. Some of it is mind-boggling, some of it is shocking, some of it is incomprehensible, some of it just defies logic, but it's the reality as it appears. How do we prevent that from reoccurring? How did it happen? Why did it happen? How come everybody was silent? What are the checks and balances that did not work? Because for all those years, there were speeches, there were budgets, there were releases from CBG, some pro-IMF, some anti-IMF. They were all that. And we were all told all the macroeconomic, microeconomic. Now we are being told that we possibly have import cover of 0.7 months or 1 month or so. I think the last time I learned about things like that, it had to be 3 to 6 months cover. What went wrong? What lessons are we learning? And if the reality is what we are told it is, then how does that play on our economic life? Does it call for great celebrations with great musicians? Or does it really call for us to understand that sometimes to conquer, you need to stoop and work so hard and postpone your gratification? There is a verse in the Bible that goes something like this. It's in that famous book, Ecclesiastes. It doesn't sound nice, but I'll have to say it, because the word woe, W-O-E, means you are cursed. You're under a curse. And it says, woe to that nation when its princes, its strong people, eat in the morning what they should eat at the evening time. 2 words, misplaced priorities. And I think a lot of that occurred. And so we must really self-inspect, self-govern, self-restrain into conscious discipline, that this is now not the time for a lot of those things. Because those who stood by us will be shaking their head and they'll be saying, in a paraphrase, what the Lord Jesus Christ said, that if only you knew the time of your visitation, Gambia, if only you knew the things that make for your peace, but they look like they're lost from your eyes because you want to continue in same old, same old. You know, the adverts are the same. We're bringing the same old people. There's nothing wrong with dancing and sunny porch and all the things we do. But after what we had last night on TV, and maybe more that will come out, and the realities of the people who knew those things were happening even before the discoveries were publicly made, it means we have to tighten our belt. And we have to start thinking, what can we do more for the country instead of what can we get? So if we are all angling and positioning for 225 million euro, and this one is coming, and Boris Johnson came, and Japan is looking around, and this one has come, and Linda Greenfield has come. I think if we do that, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm a pastor, let me give you another scripture. The Lord Jesus Christ said, when you are delivered from something bad, and you do not close your borders and you let the hemorrhaging continue, that thing that left you bad, an evil spirit, will come back and find that he's welcome again. And the Bible says, the lips of Jesus Christ, that evil entity comes with 7 other evil entities. So where you had to deal with 1, you now deal with 8. And the 7 are stronger, more vicious than the first. So we have to close all those gaps. I think I would recommend that ministries, parastatals, private sector, we all need to talk to ourselves, call a staff meeting like what we saw at GRTS last night, call and talk so everybody knows the reality on the ground. So we commit to national consciousness, company consciousness, religious consciousness, so we all walk. That is how Singapore did it, that's how Malaysia did it, that's how South Korea did it, and that's how a lot of countries are doing it. And one other thing we have to do is that we have to make sure we consciously move forward as a country. As I always used to say, one of the banes of the Second Republic was we took a lot of time talking about 400 years and 30 years until 22 years was over. And so if we spend the same time now talking about 22 years, next thing 36 months will be here. So we need to look forwards. You can never go forwards while you look backwards. You glance on it, you learn your lessons, and we move forward. I am sure if the Guinness Book of World Records was going to give public holidays to a nation, we would probably be first, second, or third, because we had so many public holidays. And I am personally, that's my opinion, individually so happy that there was no public holiday after Saturday. Monday, everybody went to work. because there's so much time against us that we have to redouble our efforts to walk through the night to bring this ship of state to a place where from maybe minus 22, it can come to 0 before we can now start moving forwards in a positive manner. So let's understand that the public holidays, I think, have to be just the regular statutory ones, and we move forward. The things that, make people's names be glorified more than the nation, we must get back to that. If you ask me my personal view, I think even the currencies should reflect that. The notes should reflect that. We've had our founding father, that's great. Maybe other things, but if we do this, then we're going to put Barrow on the currency and then put the next person on the currency and the next person on the currency. And it doesn't make the currency any better. It doesn't make it any better. And so we need to handle things like that. A sense of accountability. I was pleased to hear President Barrow remind us that he had to declare his assets, and he said he was going to hold his ministers accountable to that. Is that a private accountability or is it public? We need to find out. We need to know. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, wherever it starts, we need to know. The declaration of assets, so many things. Public accountability. The thoughts about how we move good governance forward, we have to see it. One of the days, let me give this personal, I was driving my car, I was with my wife, and there was a presidential convoy coming, and we were just parked ordinarily off the road, and we continued. And I think that's what it has. There were not 47 cars coming, and there were no soldiers, Boje, get out of here. We don't want to see that. And they should hear us, because we don't want to see that again. It reinvents where we came from. And ladies and gentlemen, somebody once said, to do the same things over and over and expecting different results is madness, it's insanity. So we all know what got us where we came out from. So everybody must be together. There must be a sense of restraint. There must be punctuality. I know for the independence celebration, presidents were coming in, so that was understood. But the reality is that the children stood out there from probably 7 in the morning, and they did not march till about 3:30. Maybe we should consider letting them march first. And so these are things we must look at and make our nation great. And finally, as I said, as the scaffolding has come off and the nation is standing, the building is standing, the baby is screaming and talking, what's the brand? I really don't want to live the American dream. I want to live the Gambian dream. I am a Gambian. And I think the Gambian dream will cover Mandinka, Jola, Aku, Serer, Manjago, Karoninka, Fula, everybody. Fana, and all. So what is that? We have a think tank. I hope they'll be looking at that. What is that Gambian dream? And what are we going to market? Especially at the points of first impression of our country. Banjul International Airport, GRTS, which is the eye of the nation, and any other stations which might come, but particularly the national broadcaster, television and radio, the ferry terminal, and all the ports. What are we marketing? My prayer is that we will market the goodwill people saw, and not corruption, not tribalism, but one Gambia, one nation, one people under God. Until I come your way next week by the grace of God, I hope this makes sense to us all. I love my country. I really love my country. And I want to push it to the highest heights wherever I go to. But I realize we all have to work together. Civil, religious, everybody. We have to work together. And when we do that, we will enjoy. Have a good evening. God bless us all. And good night.